Okay. Um, we should be on Gimel Zion, Gimel Zion,
Gimel Ches. Let's go for Gimel Ches rather.
Gimel Ches. Okay. One who breaks a net of prohibiting darkness-headed people is forbidden to benefit from bald people and hoary-haired people. For he is permitted to benefit from women and children, since only adult men are called dark-headed. One who makes a net of prohibiting the Yelodim is permitted from those who are to be born. If the Noadim, he is forbidden to benefit from those already born. But Meir permits benefit even if those already born. The sages, however, say the person referred to only that which bears offspring. One who makes a net of prohibiting those who rest on Shabbos is forbidden to benefit from Jews and forbidden to benefit from Kuthians. If those who eat garlic is forbidden to benefit from Jews and forbidden to benefit from Kuthians, if the pilgrims to Jerusalem is forbidden to benefit from Jews but permitted to benefit from Kuthians. Okay.
Okay. Kolam she'eni nene livnei Noach. He makes if he makes a vow that he will not benefit from Bnei Noach. Mutar Israel, that is nonetheless permitted with Jews, because even though Jews are descended from Noach, we're not called Bnei Noach. Asur be'umas ha'olam, but he's asur to anyone else. She'eni nene lezera Avraham. If he wants to have no benefit from the zera of Abraham, Asur Israel, then yes, he's prohibited from Jews. Umutar be'umas ha'olam. But even the Ishmaelites and the Bnei Esav, who are also technically descended from Abraham, are not considered Abraham's descendants in this regard. Only Israel is called descendants of Abraham. She'eni nene leYisrael. If he says, "I will not give benefit to any Jews," loker biyoser u'mocher b'pachos. Then if he wants to go and buy food or whatever, anything from the shops, then he has to buy at above the market price. And if he sells, he must sell less than the market price so that he does not have so that he loses on the transaction. So Yisrael ne'anin li, if he says it the other direction, lo kech b'pachos u'mocher beyoser em shomin lo, then he has to buy at below the market price and sell it above the market price if people will cooperate with him. And if he doesn't, then he's got a problem, and that's his problem. Okay. She'eni nene lahen vehen li. If he makes the neder in both directions, that he will not give benefit nor take benefit from them. Yahane lenochrim, then he is still permitted to non-Jews. Konam she'eni nene la'arelim, if he uses the term of uncircumcised, mutar ba'arle Yisrael, he is he is permitted to Jews, even Jews who are not yet who are not circumcised. Could be beheta, could be isser, but nonetheless, the Jews are considered non-arelim. But asr b'mulei ha'omos, for example, all of the Muslims who also do circumcision, but but they're still called arelim as far as our parlance is concerned. Konam she'eni neder lemulim, but if he makes a neder against people who are circumcised, astu ba'arle Israel, he is prohibited to those who are the Jews who are uncircumcised. Umutar b'mulei ha'moseh, but he's still permitted to those who of the nations who are circumcised. The converse of the previous statement. She'ein ein ha'orla krua ela yeshem hagoyim, because now the Mishnah is going to go into this whole big tangent about the foreskin and about circumcision and how big it is. Okay, so the rest of this Mishnah is now taken up about the praises of bris milah and the negativity of being uncircumcised. Shenemar, ki chol hagoyim arelim v'chol beis Yisrael orlei leiv. All the nations are considered uncircumcised, and Beis Israel is considered uncircumcised of heart, which shows that being uncircumcised of heart is considered a negative trait. That's the context in which the Navi is saying it. Omer, haplishti ha'arel hazeh, and this uncircumcised Philistine, and he didn't know whether Goliath had actually had a milah or not. He was just presumed to be an Ariel. Omer pen tismachna benos pelishtim pen talosna benos ha'arelim. Again, a pasuk using the daughters of the uncircumcised as a denigration. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer ma'usa ha'orla shen nisganu baha arishayim shenemar kol kiko hagoyim arelim. So he points out that the orla is used as a uh, as a symbol of negativity. Rabbi Shmuel Omer Gadol Mila. How great is Mila? Shenichesu Aleha Shalosh Esrei Brisos. There were 13 covenants that were signed on it. So what are these 13 things? These are uh, Parsha Shin Nistavabak Alamila Niskalashin Bris Shlosh Sepanim. So in that parsha of where Avram gets the mitzvah of bris milah, the word bris is mentioned 13 times. Okay. Um, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Gedola Mila Shedoches a Shabbos Chamora. Look how important it is. It pushes off Shabbos. You even have bris milah on Shabbos. Rabbi Shua ben Korcha Omer, Gedola Mila Shelon Nisla Lo Moshe Hatzadik Alea Malo Sha'ah. He says, look how important it was that even Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't spared for an hour for a moment when he stopped and he hadn't brised his son on the way back to Egypt, and Hashem was angry with him. Rabbi Nachem Omer, Gedola Mila Shidocha Es Hanegaim. You can even cut off a nega if it's on the foreskin, if in order to do bris milah. Normally it's aser to cut off a nega. Rabbi Omer, Gadol Mila Shekol Mitzvah She'asa Avram Avinu Lo Nikra Shalem. No matter he was such an incredible tzaddik all of his life, and he was still not yet called Shalem Ad Shemal until HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him to do bris milah. Shneimar His halech lefanai v'yei samim. Now this is when you're going to be perfect, is when you've done your milah. Davar acher gedol milah she'ilmale he lo bara HaKadosh Baruch Hu es ha'olamo. Hashem wouldn't have created the world if it was not for the bris milah. Shneimar ko amar Hashem im lo brisi yomam v'layla chokos hashamayim v'aretz lo samti. So we even have a pasuk that the bris was important enough to justify the whole of creation. Yeah. Perk Daled, Ein Bein Hamudar Hana Mechaver Lamudar Haimenu Machal Ela Drisas Aregel. This part of the Mishnah we recognize from Megillah, where the only difference between one who has taken a neder of benefit and one who's taken a neder of just food from his friend is Drisas Aregel, is the ability to walk through his property. Okay, the kalim she'ein osin bahin ochel nefesh, and also the use of any of his implements that are not used for food. Okay, and even that is only in a place where it's not done to rent the thing, because if there's money involved, then money can be used for food, so that would also fall under the prohibition. Hamudar ma'achal mechavero lo yash ilenu nafa ukvar v'rechaim v'tenor. He meant, so if somebody is mudar machal, he cannot use any implements that are used for preparing food, such as the sifter and the hand mill and the oven. Aval mashil lo chaluk, but he can borrow clothing, tabas, a ring, a talis, a cloak, nizamim, rings, v'chol davar she'ein osin bo ochel nefesh. And anything that is not used for food. Umakom shemaskirin kiyotze bahen, but if the custom is to rent your clothing to somebody who's borrowing it, if people generally take a fee for it and you're giving it for free, now that's also asur, because now you're saving him money. You're effectively giving him a gift with a monetary value, and that is asur, because he could use that monetary value to buy food. Hamuda hana mechavero. Now, if he has been prohibited from taking any benefit from his friend, nonetheless, shokel is shiklo. He's allowed to donate the person's machatzis shekel for him. Uporeh es chovo, and he's also allowed to pay off a debt. Even though that you would think that's a huge benefit that he's busy paying off your debt. Umachzir lo es avedaso, and he can repay and he can give him back his aveda, because that's just a mitzvah, even though it's he's just fulfilling a mitzvah. So that's not considered a hana. That's just fulfilling a mitzvah. Makom shenotlin alei aschar. Now, in some places they had a minhag that if you return somebody's aveda, he would give you a small amount of money in thanks for returning his aveda. So if that's the minhag, now you've got a problem if he's mudar hana, because if he gives him the money, then he's benefiting from returning. He's going to have the money from returning it. If the other person keeps the money, then he's benefiting from this is the case where the netter is in both directions. So neither of them is allowed to benefit. So they've got to take that monetary value and give it to the mikdash. Okay, and that's it for new Mishnahs today. Let's go back to Kesubos Yud Gimel Zayin. Mm, Eliezer, you're muted. You are muted, yes. Look on the bottom of your screen.
Oh, excuse me.
There you
Okay.
go.
If someone went overseas and the path to his field was lost, Abban says he may go with the shortest path, but the sages, however, say he must buy a path even for a 10,000 zuz or fly in the air. If one produced a note of indebtedness against another, and the latter produced a deed that he sold him the field, Advan says he can say, if I were indebted to you, you should have collected yours when you sold me the field. Sages, however, say this one was clever in that he sold him the land, since he can take it for security. If people produce notes of indebtedness against each other, Advan says, if I owed you money, how do you borrow from me? The sages, however, say this is one collects his note of indebtedness, and this one collects his note of indebtedness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back
Um,
Zion.
I think you went one more over on the last Mishnayos.
No, I've got up until Dalit base on my schedule.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, if two women were captured, and now this one says I was captured, but I'm undefiled, and this one says I was captured, but I'm undefiled, they are not believed since
Well,
they
we
testify.
should be on Zion. That was
Zion, Zion,
yeah.
Zion. So too in the case of two men in which this one says I am a Kohen, and this one says I am a Kohen, they are not believed. If they testify for one another, however, they are believed. Rabbi Yehuda says we do not raise one to the kahuna by the testimony of one witness, says Rabbi Elazar, when they are contestants. But when there are no contestants, we raise one by the kahuna to the testimony of one witness. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Sagan, we raise one to the kahuna by the testimony of one witness. A woman who is imprisoned by Gentiles of course of money is forbidden to her husband. If it was for the purpose of taking her life, she is prohibited to her husband. A city that was conquered by a besieging troop, all Kohanim wives that found therein are unfit, but if they have witnesses, even a slave, even a maidservant, they are relieved. A person is not believed about himself, said Reb Zechariah ben Hakatztav. By this temple, her hand did not move out of my hand from the time the Gentiles entered from Jerusalem until they left. And they said to him, a person cannot testify for himself.
Mm.
Okay.
Hey,
Rosh
Rosh
Hashanah.
Hashanah.
And we have Gimel Vav. A shofar that was split and he glued it together, it is invalid. If he glued together broken pieces of a shofar, it is invalid. If there is a hole in the shofar and he sealed it, if it hinders the blowing, it is invalid. If not, it is valid. If a person blows a shofar into a pit or into a cistern, into a cask, if one heard the sound of the shofar, he has fulfilled his obligation. But if he heard the sound of an echo, he has not fulfilled his obligation. Similarly, if one was passing behind a synagogue or his house was close to a synagogue and he heard the sound of the shofar, the sound of the reading of the Megillah, if he concentrated, he has fulfilled his obligation. But if not, he has not fulfilled his obligation. Even though both he and someone else listened, this one concentrated, but the other one did not concentrate. And it came to pass when Moshe raised his hand that Israel prevailed. Was it Moses' hands that won the battle or lost the battle? Rather, the Torah teaches you, as long as Israel looks heavenward and subjected their heart to the Father in heaven, they would prevail. But when they did not, they would fall. In a similar manner, you learn, make a fiery serpent and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass that whoever is bitten will look at it and live. Was it the serpent that killed or the serpent that gave life? Rather, when Israel looked heavenward and subjected their heart to their Father in heaven, they were healed, and when they were not, they perished. A deaf person, an imbecile, and a minor cannot discharge the obligation of the many. This is the general rule. Whoever is not obligated himself in a matter cannot discharge the obligation of the many. Okay.
Okay, Master Shani.
Okay, we have Beis Zion. Peshamai says one may not convert his sellers into gold dinners, but Beis Hillel permits. Rabbi Akiva said, I converted Rabbi Gamil's and Rabbi Shua's money into gold dinners. If one changes Meiser Shani coins for a seller, Meshamai coins for a wholesaler, but Beis Hillel say one shekel silver and shekel coins. Rabbi Meir says one may not redeem silver and produce with silver, but the sages permit it. If one changes the seller of Meister Sheni and uses lie, Beit Shammai says coins for the whole seller, but Beit Hillel says 1 shekel, 1 shekel silver and 1 shekel coins. The deliberators before the sages say for the dinner silver and for the dinner copper coins. Rabbi Akiva says for the dinner silver and for a quarter copper coins. The Tophan says for aspers and silver, Shammai says let him leave it in a shop and eat the equivalent.
Yeah.
That was it.
No, we're on to Nagaim.
Okay. Okay. Dalad Aleph. There are signages that apply to white hair, which does not apply to expansion, and there are signages that apply to expansion, which does not apply to white hair. White hair initially renders tame with any shade of white and has no symptom whereby it is tahor. There are signages that apply to expansion. Expansion renders tame with any amount, renders or nagayam tame, and renders tame when it's spared outside the nega, which is not the case with white hairs. There are stringencies that apply to living skin, which do not apply to expansion, and there are stringencies that apply to expansion, which do not apply to living skin. Living skin renders tame initially and renders tame with any appearance. There are stringencies that apply to expansion. Expansion renders tame with any amount, renders all negam tame, and renders tame outside the nega, which is not the case with living skin. There are stringencies that apply to white hair, which do not apply to a living skin, and there are stringencies that apply to a living skin that does not apply to white hair. White hair renders a boiled nega and a burned nega tame. Renders tame, whether together or spread apart, whether surrounded or not. There are stringencies that apply to living skin, and living skin renders tame on a bald area on either the back or the front of the head. Whether changed by the nega or not prevents one who turns completely white from becoming tahor and renders tame with any appearance, which is not the case with white hair.
Okay. And Abbas.
Okay. Base your Gimel. Reb Shimon says, be meticulous in reciting the Shema and in prayer. And when you pray, do not make your prayer fixed. Rather, an entreaty for mercy and a supplication before the omnipresent, as it is stated, for he, God, is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, abounding in kindness, and relentful of punishment. And do not be yourself as a wicked person. Reb Elazar says, be diligent in the study of Torah and know what to answer a heretic. You know before whom you toil and know that your employer can be relied upon to pay you the wage of your labor. Reb Tarfon says the day is short, the task is abundant, the labors are lazy, the reward is great, and the master of the house is insistent.
Okay. All right. A good moed.
Right, I'll see you tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.
Tomorrow morning, Mitzvah Shem. Okay.
Okay.